galaxy of intellective dignitaries, our invited guest speaker, teachers, and my student friends. I, Aishwarya Shah, student of final year B Farm, welcome you all on behalf of Sinhagad College of Pharmacy. The institution's Innovation Council of Sinhagad Technical Education Society has organized this e-session on the topic Innovation/Prototype Validation, Converting Innovation into a Startup. Today, we are lucky enough to have Dr. Bhaskar Gupta with us to guide us on the topic. Welcome, sir. Without much delay, I would now like to invite Mr. Sandeep Gadve, sir, HOD and Assistant Professor SOP, to present the preamble for today's session.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Sandeep Gadve. Extend warm greeting to all of you on behalf of Institute Innovation Council of Sinhagad Technical Education Society, Sinhagad College of Pharmacy. I heartily welcome Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, sir, and he's a president of Institute Innovation Council, IIMT College of Polytechnic, Greater Noida. Also welcomes to all teaching staffs and students for participating in the program. Today, our expert had their own journey of converting a prototype into a commercial product. Our honorable guest had worked on the development of prototype electronic eye for blind people. I'm sure student will get the thorough knowledge about through their experience. I hope this session will not only arouse the interest of the student in this area, but also will become a wonderful example. So in the process of conversion of ideation to a prototype, so let us introduce her. I will introduce her. I think she has a network problem. So it's my immense pleasure to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, sir. Sir is eminent academician, come research scientist and director at the NIRRA Technical Campus, and he is also officiating director and dean at IIMT Group of College. Sir has completed BE and MTech. Sir has more than 19 years of teaching experience. There are a number of achievements in his career. Some notable achievements are the commercialization of the electronic eye for blind people in collaboration with MSME Delhi. The UAV's development in the collaboration with Korean Aerospace Industries Association. Sir is also working on some sponsored project like projects on robotics, software defined radios. Sir also working with the student projects for Microsoft imaging competition. Dr. Bhaskar Gupta sir had been the director of SSITM Alibag, PIRTM Gurja, and NIRA Technical Campus Ghaziabad. He is also a fellow member of IEEE, MIT, IE, IETE, and IIRS Dehradun. He had been 6 times coordinator for IIT Delhi virtual lab programs, working as a model coordinator for IIRS ISRO program and in SIAM and NPTEL program. With this short introduction, I would like to request Dr. Bhaskar Gupta sir to continue with the session. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep.
Yes. Sir.
So let me just start. So what we were talking about the startup. See, how can we define startup? How can we compare, startup with a company? Startup is also a company. It's a small company actually, which is in the first stages of its development, and that wants to scale up. So that makes a main difference between any startup and a established company. You could be a founder of this startup where you can seek, you can develop, and you can validate some scalable business models. You have to develop innovative products or the services which are irreplaceable in the market. And you are developing those products, you are creating those services in order to sustain in the market for commercialization, for revenue generation. So that is the definition of the startup. And a startup is always founded by budding entrepreneurs who are just going to start their business. And a lot of risk is involved as an entrepreneur. Nobody can give you the guarantee whether your business will succeed or not. It's a long development cycle of the startup. So we have to follow the design thinking principles also, technology readiness levels, problem solution fit, product market fit, different approaches are there. So that's why I have already talked about innovation. Try to innovate your process, your service, or the product which you are going to develop during your startup journey. What is another one is prototyping. So prototype is having is a same is a say like a product which you want to develop originally. It's a kind of original product, but it's a stage before the development of the final product. So prototype is having the minimum number of features which are being used in order to validate your product. So what you will be doing, you have to pass on your prototype to your friends, to your family members, in the market also, to some of the end users. They will be giving the feedback about your product or the service after a certain time, and based on that feedback which you have gathered, you have to synthesize, you have to perform analysis, and you have to do number of iterations on your product, on your service. You have to actually pivot on your product until you get the right product in your hands which you want to commercialize for revenue generation. And that is the part of design thinking process also, which always starts with the empathy, where you have to empathize with your users and users. You have to understand the needs and wants of your end users. So please do remember, 3/4 of the startups fail in India every year during the first year only. The reason is sometimes the lack of funding is there, which is one of the very rare common reasons. But the most important one, you usually forget, you never give respect to your customers. You are developing something which customer is never wanting. So the customer will never be paying for your product. So I give you one example, like Apple Corporation. Everybody is ready to pay 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees for their iPhones. Everybody wants to keep Apple mobile phones. So it was the approach used by Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Corporation, is the leading mobile manufacturing company in the world, which used the principle of design thinking, which is really very, very different. The Steve Jobs said, think differently, work on your product, try to innovate it, use design thinking principles rather than looking the people outside your company. So this was the thinking of Steve Jobs, which led to the company in a right direction. So please do remember these things, otherwise your startup will fail, your idea will die, because you have developed some innovative product. It could be innovative based on your knowledge, but I may not purchase your product. So in that case, your startup will fail. So try to do validated learning prior to the launch of the product into the market. So let me just present my PPT. And I will be taking your questions also in the last. So is it visible to you all? Dr. Sandeep, is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Visible.
So
Yes,
officially welcoming you to this session on
Yes.
Prototype or innovation validation, and how can we convert your innovation into a startup. So prototype is an early sample, model, or release of a product built to test your experimental proof of concept or the process. It is a term used in a variety of contexts, including semantics, designing, electronics, and software programming. So it is not just a hardware prototype. The prototype of software is also possible. So if you are working in software development, you will have to generate software prototype. A prototype is generally used to evaluate a new design to enhance precision by system analysts and users. So prototype is used for validation learning. The first example of something such as a machine or other industrial product which you are going to develop, as you are from pharmacy college, so you must be developing number of herbal products where the people are very much interested these days, from which all later forms are developed. So first you have to develop the prototype, and after the prototyping you will be developing your original product after validation. So if you look at this prototype model, it is starts with a requirement gathering of the end users or your customers. Then you should have decision making. You have to take quick decision. Once you have taken the decision, you have to be ready with your prototype. For prototype development starts, you have to evaluate your customer by giving them your prototype. If it is acceptable by your customer, then only you are going to design, you are going to implement and performing testing and evaluation part, and then going for the maintenance. So this is entirely the iterative process. So number of iterations you would have to perform until you get the right product. Prototyping process model, if you look at, so you have to communicate first with outside people in order to gather their feedback. Once you have communicated with those people, you have to now develop your prototype. You have to construct your prototype, which is an some lower version of your original product with few features, but sufficient features in order to gather the feedback. Then you have to evaluate your customer. You have to check the evaluation part. If it is okay, if your customer is satisfied, then you can go for deployment. Or if it is software related, then if it is not so, then you have to go for iterations. You have to iterate your prototype. You have to make necessary modifications in your product based on the demand of the customer. Once you have iterated on your prototype, again you will be going back to the customer evaluation. You will be evaluating your customer again, and now I am very sure that once you have performed the iteration, you have made certain modifications, you have done value proposition, you have added value to your product or the service, then it will be acceptable by your customer, and you will be in the final stage of the startup cycle where you can launch your product, you can develop your original product, or if it is software industry, you can go for software deployment. It is the first stage, communication of the prototype modeling. The developer communicates with the customer to gather the customer requirements. Here, the developers identify the objective of the software and also outline definitions that are still fuzzy. They also outline the requirements which are clear and perfectly known. Analyzing the customer requirements, the developers proceed to construct the prototype. So I hope it is very much clear. So you have to first understand the needs of you have to communicate with your customer, you have to understand their requirements. Based on that, you will be developing your product, but prior to it, you have to develop the prototype for gathering the feedback. Once you have communicated with your customer, you have understood their wants and needs, what they want from you, what they want to look into your product or service. Is really your product innovative? Is really your service innovative? Is your process innovative? While constructing the prototype, the developers establish objectives such as what will be the use of the prototype, what features of the final system the prototype would reflect. However, the cost of the developed prototype should be low and quality must be very high. And even the speed of prototype development should be fast. So what I mean to say here, I am talking about lean startup, lean methodology, which is not a part of the session. While maintaining the cost and speed of the prototyping, the developers ignore the requirements that have nothing to do with the customer's interest. Instead, they develop prototypes based on the requirements of the customer's interests, such as user interface and unclear functions and so on. So you have to be think about the costing also, speed of your prototyping process. Because what I mean to say, you have to speed up your process. Reason, if your prototype is not acceptable, if some mistake is there, so immediately once you get it and you can modify it. If it is going to take too long time, then you might take long hours, long time in removing the errors from your system. So you have to identify the wrong things immediately so that you can correct it. And that is the lean approach and about minimum viable product. Customer evaluation. Once the developer develops a prototype for the software, they demonstrate it to the customer for evaluation. So it could be a product, it could be any, so there's herbal product, as you belong to pharmaceutical industry, pharmacy students. So what you have to demonstrate your herbal product in front of your customers for their evaluation. Customers evaluate the prototype against their specified requirements. If the customer is satisfied with the prototype, the developer starts developing the software or the herbal product or the service, whatever, or an electronic product. Else the customer suggests the required changes in the prototype. So if your prototype is not okay, is not fit for the market, then the customer may suggest you some requirements or some suggestions will be there which you have to incorporate. Iterate prototype. Considering the modification suggested by the customer, the developer starts modifying the prototype. Once modified, the developers again demonstrate the prototype to the customer for evaluation. So as I have already discussed, if your product is not acceptable in the market, you have to again go for customer evaluation after the iterations. So once you have iterated, I hope your product will be modified and again customer evaluation will be done, and now it will be acceptable by your customer. So you have to perform all types of customer evaluation before you launch your product into the market. That is very, very important. Once it has been accepted and you have already iterated on your prototype, you have the time to deploy your software. The developer identifies and understands the customer's requirements properly and completely. As all the requirements are met, are now very clear, the developers develop the software based on the requirements. The software is then delivered to the customer with the expectation that it meets all the requirements specified by the customer. So it could be your herbal product, it could be your any process related to your pharmacy, so for which you would have to develop the prototype. And once your prototype is acceptable by the customer and it meets the requirements specified by your customer, then you can develop your original product which you can launch in the market for commercialization. And of course, after that, you can also scale up your business. So prototype validation comes in when you have determined what user problem you need to solve, but you haven't yet figured out how to solve it. In that case only, you have to develop the prototype, because you know what problem you have to solve, but you don't know how to solve it. So in that case, you are in a problem. You cannot directly develop your original pharmaceutical product, because your product may fail after launching in the market, because you have not done any kind of customer evaluation, you have not performed your validation learning. So it's a very later stage of concept testing that allows you to evaluate how someone feels about a new product before you release it. So what are the different advantages and disadvantages of prototyping model? Pros and cons. The model helps the developer to understand the certain and uncertain requirements of the customer, right? It helps the customer to easily realize the required modification before the final implementation of the system. The model reduces the efforts required in developing the final system, as the developers develop the final system after all the specifications are clear to them. So there are fewer chances of the final system being incorrect. So I hope you must have understood the advantages of this kind of prototyping model. The customer does not have to wait for a long to see the working model of the final system. There are more chances of the developed system is more user friendly. User satisfaction is also achieved by using prototyping model. So what are the disadvantages of this prototyping model? The developers develop prototypes in an artificial environment. So it may happen that the customer misunderstands an element of the final system. Seeing the working model at an early stage may create a misconception to the customer that the developers will deliver the final product soon, but it might take some more time. Users are never satisfied as they are getting too many opportunities to specify the changes. Neither customer nor developer is able to specify the number of iterations, because during the prototyping modeling, we have to do infinite number of iterations sometimes, or finite number of iterations. Nobody knows how many iterations will be there, neither me and nor customer. What are the key takeaways? In prototyping, the developer demonstrates the prototype of the final system at a very early stage. The customer has to evaluate the prototype and suggest modifications to it to the developers. Prototype reflects those features of the final product or the system which are of user interest. Developers refine the prototype based on the modification suggested by the customer. The developer iteratively refines the prototype until they achieve user satisfaction. Once the prototype serves its objective, developers start developing the final system using a process model. There are two types of prototyping: throwaway prototyping and evolutionary prototyping. In throwaway prototyping, developers develop several prototypes and then throw them away once they achieve the right one or the objective of the prototype. Then they develop the final product, final service, or the final system using some different model. Whereas in evolutionary prototyping, the developers refine the initially developed prototype to evolve the final system. So evolutionary is the good one because it requires less amount of money, because developing physical prototype and is really a very expensive proposition. So go for evolutionary, try to refine your product which meets the requirements of the customers. The main objective of prototyping is to understand all the specifications of the final product or the system. So this is all about prototyping. It helps the developers to understand the requirements of the customer clearly so that the developed final system or product has negligible uncertainty. So because during any product development, a lot of uncertainty is involved and we have to work under the extreme conditions of uncertainty. So by developing prototype, by developing a right product, you can reduce the chance of uncertainty. Creating a product is a very complex process. However, there is no point of starting the design and development works without validating your idea. It's the very first step for every new product idea or innovative idea. Without proper validation, you are actually risking wasting time, material, and money on a product that doesn't stand a chance on the market. So, if your idea is not innovative, if your product is not innovative, if you have not done any proper validation, you are wasting your time, you are wasting your material, and this is not acceptable in the market. Building a prototype is one of the best ways to validate your product idea. So what I mean to say, you have to validate your idea. You should have product feasibility, your idea, feasibility, whether your idea is genuine or not. Once you have done with ideation, which refers to the idea creation, once you are ready with problem statement, then only you can generate your innovative idea. And after that, you should have experimental proof of concept, which is a written document verifying about your idea feasibility, your product feasibility, and your commercial viability, whether this idea is okay or not okay, because your idea sometimes may be wrong, and you will be having going in some other direction. So you should know everything prior to the start. So building a prototype is one of the best ways for your product idea validation, and it is the first step to creating a product that users would like to love. So how can you create a prototype to validate your idea? So prototyping is done in order to validate your idea, whether your idea is right or wrong. And of course, even if it is wrong, you can go back to your idea and you can change your idea for addressing your problem statement. So what are prototypes? Before we dive into specific methods of how you can make a prototype and test it, let's first establish what prototyping actually is. Prototypes are used to capture concepts and ideas into tangible form that can be tested. Tangibility means if some physical form is there. They are like sketches of the final product. So prototyping sometimes can also be done on a paper. So if you have to be ready with your paper, you can have some sketches also on the paper, which are going to outline how you are going to solve the problem or what kind of product you will be developing. Prototypes represent all the functionalities of the product without any of the additional visuals, illustrations, branding, pictures. Prototypes can be of various different fidelity levels, from a simple sketch on paper to a highly functional digital prototype made using. Now different softwares are available with us, InVision or Figma, and you can use these softwares in order to develop your digital prototypes. Depending on the project stage and specific testing needs, you can use different levels of fidelity. But I would say if you are going for high fidelity prototypes, it may require a lot of money. So you can, because you are the risk taker, you don't have more working capital in the beginning of any business or startup unit where you want to convert your prototype into a startup. I would say to make use of low fidelity prototypes. For example, if you are just getting started with a new idea and you are not having any more experience, there is no need to make a high fidelity interactive prototype, right? Instead, you can make a low cost paper one also sometimes to test on a few users only outside the company and get their initial feedback. Generally speaking, the further along the design process you are, the higher fidelity should the prototype be. So please be careful if you are having just an idea and you don't know too much about it. So in that case, you should use low fidelity prototypes. If you are really ready with your design process, you have already worked with same kind of products, you have your prototype, some prototypes you have already developed. So in that case, you can now develop high fidelity prototypes. Why should I bother about prototyping? From our experience, most companies don't really grasp why prototyping is so beneficial. For many, it seems like a waste of time. However, it truly is the fastest and cheapest way to test your product. So, what are some key benefits of prototyping? So, here I would say if your prototype is okay, in that case, you are going to convert your prototype, your innovation into a startup. If your prototyping is not all correct, then your product you cannot develop which you want to. In that case, your startup will fail and you won't be able to convert, to transform your innovation into a startup. So what are the advantages? It is going to minimize the risk. First of all, prototyping early on will help you minimize risks. The sooner you build a prototype, the sooner you will find errors and mistakes, and you will be removing those errors, and you will develop your unique and irreplaceable product. Your product must have some uniqueness and innovativeness. Prototyping is also the best way to get a better understanding of what the users are looking for and how they perceive your product idea. Without such research, you risk building a product that will not hold its own on the market. You are testing your ideas. Prototypes are a great way of quickly testing feature ideas. If you create even a simple paper prototype, you will be able to quickly test new concepts and get almost instant feedback from your team members and the target users who will be your customer. Prototypes are helpful modeling tools at every stage of the design process. Providing a sense of ownership. A prototype can create a sense of ownership within all the stakeholders, making it easier for them to engage with the project. If you sense that someone on the team is not that invested, presenting them with a prototype will be a good step towards creating an emotional bonding with the product. Better pitch, which means your business pitch, which you are going to present in front of your angel investors, venture capitalists, successful entrepreneurs. But for what you are going to present, if they will find your idea innovative and creative, then these angel investors are the rich people who can invest money in your business from 5 lakh to 10 lakh rupees without having any equity stake, which is usually from 2.5% to 9%. It is not there. They are not interested in any financial gain in the during the first stages of the development cycle of your startup. But your idea must be innovative, and innovation comes from creativity, and creativity is a very fuzzy idea. We can never explain about creativity until you develop some real model or real product. People who you are pitching your business idea to will get to see and experience the product before they make a decision, which may greatly influence whether they decide to back you. After all, it's better to make decisions about something you can actually see and use than to decide on a completely imaginary product. So what I mean to say, should have a very brief, business model, which must be scalable, very innovative business pitch, which must, tell about your innovativeness in your product or idea, and then you can present it. I would suggest not to make more than 10 or 12 PPTs when you are going to pitch your idea for your startup, for getting working capital for your enterprise. Some insights are impossible to come by without prototypes. What do I mean? Well, when testing your prototype with the target users, you may come across insights you would not otherwise have found. Things like accessibility issues or unexpected edge cases. Getting those insights during prototyping ahead of time and preparing for them before you launch the product will help you avoid costly mistakes and help make your product more user friendly. How can you build your prototypes to create better products? And of course, successful startups As you can see, there is a lot of benefits to prototyping, but perhaps the biggest one is this: prototyping enables you and your team to build better products for your startup. And better products mean more satisfied users, and that leads to the growth and increased revenue of the company. So basically, what every company wants, think of it this way: investing in prototypes early on is much cheaper than paying to solve issues later on when the product has been launched. You will avoid a ton of unnecessary work by spending a bit more time on testing your ideas. Now that you are convinced that building prototypes is the way to go, let's get into how to create and test good prototypes. So there are bad prototypes also, good prototypes also. So first steps with prototyping: before you dive into drawing actual prototypes, you should do some basic research on your business idea in general. Get an overview of the market, your market segment, your competitors, what they are developing, whether same kind of product is existing in the market, same herbal product. If same herbal product is existing in the market, then who will be interested in your product? If you have not done any kind of marketing branding for your startup, so it's a red ocean. A lot of competitors are there sitting around you. So be very much aware of it. What are the needs? What are the user needs? This way you will be able to direct your ideas into specific segments of the market and create a better prototype. Here is some questions you need to ask yourself and your team before you move on with the design process. So what problem will the product solve? First, ask yourself how your product will help the users. Without identifying how you will be able to help the target audience, your customer, you can't move on to designing the innovative solution. You can never design innovative solution without identifying their problems. Think about possible use cases. You might want to try creating a problem statement to get a general overview of the purpose of your product. What similar products are already on the market? You have to be aware of. Try to find competitive products that people are using now. Search not only within the same industry as your business, but also across other industries also. You might find something that solves the same problem which you are solving, but regarding a different target group. So sometimes it could be a same thing that you must be solving the same kind of problem, but for a different people, for a different target group. Who is the target user? What are their goals? The next thing you need to get to know is who are your target users? What do they really want and need? What are they looking for from your product? How will it integrate into their daily lives? How will they be using it? Don't get tangled with your own expectations. Try to really think outside the box and place yourself inside the user like mindset. So you have to understand the customer mindset, and then only you have to start. So what type of product is it? With the target user and their goals in mind, think about what type of product you should make. Depending on the target audience, they may need it to work on different devices, electronic devices or other kinds of devices and platforms. For example, some age groups are more likely to use mobile devices, while others prefer using web-based devices. So it is depending on the choice of the customer. You need to know what you are actually making before starting to work on your first project. What are the goals for the prototyping process? The last thing to set before getting to work on your prototypes is the goals. Before you actually create the prototype, you need to have an idea of what you want them to achieve. Depending on your specific goals, objectives, you may want to create a higher or lower fidelity prototype. This will also determine whether you need to build a digital prototype or whether a simple paper one will be enough. So how can you draw it? If it is your first prototype, after you have gathered the information, you have an idea of what the product might look like, it's the time to get started with drawing your prototype. So start with gathering your materials, whether it will be a pen, paper, marker, or a whiteboard, and start sketching. If it's your first time designing a prototype, you might want to use a free templates are there of the device you are designing for. So if you are developing some device in that case and you want to develop prototype for it, so you can make use of free templates, design templates available on the internet itself, and you can download and you can use it. There is a plenty of free device designs available online that you can download and draw on. It will make it easier for you to create something that's suited perfectly for a certain device. So sketch user flows. It's important that your sketch will show the user flow of the product. Make sure to mark what happens when the user does a certain action. After you create a few screens or you are ready with your paper sketch, you will get a better idea of what's the overall shape of the product, and it will become easier to create the user flow. Give yourself time. Although we tend to use prototypes for rapid prototyping, rapid testing, you don't have to rush the process if it is your first time drawing a prototype. When working with materials like pen and paper, you have the advantage of being able to experiment and try out various different concepts. Don't get stressed when your prototype doesn't look good or looks messy. The point of a prototype is to explore different ideas and designs for free without the need to build an actual app. Handmade designs are different from digital ones. When working on a paper prototype, you will get a better idea of where content like pictures and illustrations fit into your design. However, you need to keep in mind that the size of your writing and drawings is not representative of digital designs. And therefore, when you decide to move on to a higher fidelity prototype, it may look different and you may have to change the length of your content. So there is no guarantee that whatever you are going to sketch on a paper prototype will be as per your actual digital designs or not. So after that, you would have to go for high fidelity prototypes, and accordingly, you would have to make changes in your content during your paper sketching. So when it comes to high fidelity prototypes, after you have created your paper prototypes, you are happy with, you can try to create high fidelity prototypes now for your herbal industry. However, there is not always a need for a high fidelity prototypes. Sometimes a sketch will be enough to use it during the testing and evaluation phases of the startup cycle. Depending on your goals and objectives, you may be able to move on without a more complex digital prototype. What's also important to know is that higher fidelity prototypes are not that easy to make and are less cost effective than paper ones. Making digital prototypes is not that easy and usually requires using online prototyping softwares like Adobe XD is there, Figma, InVision, which are not that simple to get started with and do come at a cost. However, if your objective is to use a digital high fidelity prototype, here is what to focus on when creating one. So what is the fidelity of a prototype? We keep talking about low and high fidelity prototypes, but what does that actually mean? The fidelity of a prototype is determined by the complexity of it, meaning the level of interactivity, visual design, and content. Depending on what you want to achieve with the prototype, you can opt for different levels of fidelity in your prototype design. However, you should keep in mind that the higher fidelity the prototype, the more it is going to cost to make it and the longer it will take. How to test? Now that you have a prototype ready, you can start testing it. How to do that? Well, the method of testing your prototype will depend on what you look to achieve. For rapid testing, you might want to see if anyone in your environment matches the target audience and could take part into testing. In that case, if you want speedy system, if you want to get quantitative feedback, you might email the prototype you made with a questionnaire to people who fit into your target audience. However, if you want to get more specific qualitative feedback, you might want to consider conducting IDIs or in-depth interviews with your end users, face-to-face interviews. These interviews are one-on-one meetings when you sit down with the user and ask them to use your prototype, perform specific tasks, and share their thoughts. Using IDIs or face-to-face interaction is a very effective method of gathering quality insights when you particularly want to go for qualitative analysis. But it takes more time to do and will not be a free testing method. Most participants won't be willing to give away their time for free. They might be busy, so you might want to be prepared to pay small rewards also to each participant. Additionally, conducting these face on face is not an easy task. So you might want to consider hiring a designer or a UX design company outside to help you out in that case. If you don't want to work with a designer or some outside agency, you can start by conducting smaller tests yourself using the online available tools. So there is a plenty of software available to analyze your design. For example, using the Hotjar app is there free. You can distinguish problem areas within your design that make users confused or test whether your design keeps their attention for certain amounts of time. Another great way to test your prototype design you made would be creating a landing page that presents a few screens of the product and launching a mini ad campaign to see how many people would be interested in such an idea. We can also ask those people to leave their email addresses sometimes and then later use it to send them additional questions or ask for their feedback. Keep your objectives in mind. Remember when we talked about objectives and goals earlier? Well, it's very important to keep them in mind when testing your prototype design. Don't rush into testing methods simply because they are quick or free. Think about the results they will provide and how those insights will benefit your product. Start small and don't waste time and money on extensive testing. After you start your tests, gather the insights and feedback and improve your prototype design along the process. This ensures that by the end of the testing procedures, you will have the most viable product that is likely to succeed on the market. If you feel so, if you need some expert help for validating your product idea, in that case, you can approach experts also for their help. How to build a prototype for a startup idea. So if you have some innovative idea, startup you want to start, startup founders that have identified a real problem and created a solution have a startup idea. They have a vision for disrupting the industry, making life better, easier, quicker, or different by making that idea into a business. So where you can convert your prototype into a startup. So prototype comes from your innovative idea. That startup idea often has a digital or technical element that needs creation. This can be a web app or a platform or some software solution. The challenge is figuring out how to build this software solution, especially if the founder has little or no technical expertise in that case. Founders can start by learning the technical language, just like building a house where you would need to understand the terminology of what foundations are, what an architect is, who does what in the build process. Founders need to understand the basics of the technical lingo. Then founders have to consider what they want to build. At the early stage of a startup, the founders can look to build a prototype only. First steps to draw out the customer flow of the product and think through the various steps from customers interested in buying the product right through to customers using the product. Second step, once the drawings are complete, is to consider who is going to build the prototype. Options include outsourcing the development and design to an agency. This agency can be based locally or further afield. With the increased cost of technical development in UK, Ireland, more founders are looking to Europe and Asia for outsourced development to keep costs down. The challenges can be a time difference, being able to project manage them closely, and occasionally language differences. Another option is considering a no-code route to get the prototype built. This option allows users to create apps through methods like drag and drop, adding in application components to complete the application. There are several tools that founders can use to get started, including Bubble and Airtable. These are complemented by automation tools such as Zapier, Notion, and Typeform to move data from one place to another. The no-code option takes some money for the founders to learn, however, may save some money in building the prototype. The final step for the prototype is to use it to get customer feedback on the validity of the idea and prove there is a demand before looking to further development into a commercial solution. So bringing your startup to life. When you start working on your idea, you should make sure that you validate every decision you are going to make. If you don't do this, you are at risk of investing time and effort into something that customers might not want. A great book to read about validating business ideas is The Mom Test by Rob. This book will help you to understand what your customers really want from your startup. Lots of ideas are invented well before they ever become big. In our fast changing world, with technological advancements, there are more opportunities than ever. Look at how many businesses started with the rise of the internet. Those business ideas might have been around for a long time, but were made possible by the rise of the internet. When you are brainstorming your idea, ask yourself these two important questions. Do consumers want this product? Is the technology ready for it? Your strategy should match the size of your business. Every business needs a strategy that includes your startup. When you design your strategy, you can look at other successful businesses. Try to learn from their strategy and implement their best practices into your own. When doing this, you have to consider how the strategy will affect your startup. As your startup grows, you can experiment with and implement new strategies. Clearly allocate roles. Once your startup is ready for growth, you are going to need help. You might need someone to help you with sales or finance. Since the startup is still small, you might all end up wearing many hats within the company. This is likely to result in conflict and can slow down decision making as well. After working on your startup for some time, it has now grown bigger. The time has come for your startup to transition to the next phase. In this scale up phase, you will face many new challenges. Here are Emilio's tips to go through this transition with success. Hiring. At some point, you will have to start hiring new people. Never underestimate the importance of selecting the right people during this phase. Many startups fail because they grow very fast and don't hire the right people. You have to keep in your mind that every person you are hiring will have an effect on the culture of your startup, business, or enterprise. When you grow fast and hire people that don't match with your culture, it can have a negative effect on your business. When hiring new people, you should be matching applicants with culture fit between the applicant and the company, their skills, personality, to know if a person is a match with the culture of your startup. You will need to have a clear picture of your culture. You can use a test like company culture test to analyze your company culture. Creating teams. When your startup grows, you will have to start creating teams. This goes back to the tip of role allocation. It is important that everybody knows what their role is to avoid conflicts. You should try putting different types of people together in one team. This way you can create diversity within the team. By doing that, you will create a team where people will challenge each other in a good way. You can use the true colors test by Don Lowry to help put together a team of different personalities in your startup. Evolving into a leader, in the beginning, you will likely be involved in all aspects of your startup, from sales and marketing to product development. As your startup grows, you should grow as well. Your focus has to shift from small details to the bigger picture. You have to become a leader. This transition to becoming a leader could be a difficult task. With some startups, you see that the founder will take a step back and an experienced CEO will take over. Thank you very much. Dr. Sandeep, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You have given the brief about prototype validation, and I think it's really will be benefited to our student. This information is necessary at prima facie, we can say. Sir, I have some questions. We are very eager to listen to you about your inventions. What you have, I think you have done I software some sort of. So you
Yes,
can
yes,
give brief. Yeah, you can give
yes,
brief
yes.
about that.
See, see, I am presently working as a startup founder also.
Okay,
So
sir.
for two startups. So working as IIC president 2 years back. So I started thinking in this particular direction, and thanks to the ministry, and I am a founder of two startups these days, and I am one of the directors in these startups. And one startup, in the food service actually. See, a number of sectors are there when you are going to register your company as a startup company. On you can register your company as a private limited company, limited liability company, single person company, sole proprietorship could be there, and different seven entities are there. The way you can register your company. So I registered my company as a private limited company. So private limited company is a good option because many stakeholders in this kind of startup ecosystem like angel investors can easily invest. So and you have to decide mutually when you are going to sign agreement between the two parties about the equity stake and all that. So we are into, for first startup is A to Z Foodie India Private Limited, the name of my company. And in this startup, we are providing the food service to the restaurants, to the mess of the engineering colleges. We are offering food services for parties. So we have, as I have already talked about, any startup requires a team of strong members, and not of same kind. Some people should be from marketing area, sales and marketing. Somebody should have technical knowledge. So usually it is a combination of 7 to 8 team members from the different, having different expertise. So I would say, and another one is in the this we have developed the cooler. Electronic eye was the project which was supported by MSME, and where we developed the electronic eye 5 years back. team developed an electronic eye for blind people community. So we used different types of microcontrollers and different types of sensors and actuators were integrated into that electronic eye, and it was selected by MSME during the presentation. And what I mean to say, your government looks for the commercial viability also, and the government focuses on how are you going to innovate it, and as well as cost is the most important part. Whenever you are going to present your idea in front of government representatives, they you have to really compare your product with the existing products. So they were mainly focusing on how is your product different from the already existing their electronic eyes available in the market. So you have to emphasize on cost reduction also and maintaining the quality. So we reduce the cost of that electronic eye, and that time the minimum cost that of the electronic eyes available in the market were around from 10,000 to 25,000 rupees. So we reduced it to the maximum extent and brought it to 3,000 rupees only. And we developed that kind of, and that was the innovation. If even if you are going to make some changes in the existing product, you are lowering its cost. That is, becomes a part of innovation. So that was one thing. Then I developed one software based radio. So usually the I'm talking about this FM, all these types of radios, and we are listening to FM. So nobody knows about the future conditions, future traffic. No, so in order to address that problem, we defined the radio with the help of the software only. So what was the advantage and uniqueness there? That even if your traffic is increasing day by day, your customer traffic, so in that case, it is not a problem. So you can make the required changes in your legacy electronic circuits because it requires a transmitter and receiver on the other side. So that way we defined the radio with the help of the software in order to address the future needs of the customers. And another startup we founded last year only, and where our students have developed some innovative cooler with certain features, and remote based cooler and solar. Now we have added solar feature also with that electronic cooler, and where humidity control is there, speed control is there, everything. So we are students and team members are regularly going to innovate on this. And I'm happy to share on this platform that our management we presented our idea in front of some members of Atal Incubation Center, which we have an MOU with the Atal Incubation Center of BeamTech Greater Noida. And the angel investors were very happy to see. They were we presented our business pitch, and after that the one angel investors came out, and we presented, and we got 10 lakh rupees in the beginning only for my startup, and 100 pieces of that remote controlled cooler were developed. Until now 75 coolers were placed at different places in the nearby market, and almost 50 coolers have already been sold. And our startup is generating revenue, and we have an incubation support also. In my college only we have incubator. So we are having incubation program where 35 startups are working under that incubator, and 10 startups are already graduated, are generating the revenue. Because incubators can support you only for a period of up to 2 years, minimum 1 to 2 years, maximum 2 years. And after that you will be asked to leave the campus facility. So you have to work very hard. 2 years are enough in order to stand in the market. So you have a lot of co-working space opportunities provided, mentoring support is there, seed funding is also provided. So the college provided us 5 lakh rupees under this incubation program, and 10 lakh rupees we got from angel investor by presenting our idea to Atal Incubation Center representatives. So now government is working very hard in order to strengthen this kind of ecosystem. Now we have the Startup India program. In your state, you will be having the Maharashtra Startup UP, Startup Maharashtra, where the grant is available, for the startups. Nidhi Priyas scheme of Department of Science and Technology is there, and so many incubators. FITT, look, one of the best incubators located in IIT Delhi. If they find your startup idea innovative, they are providing you a lot of financial support. So the only thing which is missing these days, students, I would say, have to try to transform their project. From there, it's only third year, second year, they have to start thinking in that direction. And any final year project which you are going to do, you should think of developing or converting that project into the startup. That is the best way, and the teachers should encourage students in final year only. So and then it's not going to take too much of money also, no more time investment, because it is already a part of your project of your pharmacy course, of your BTech course. And then you can transform your that product which you have developed into your startup. And that was the topic of our webinar today. I hope you must have understood clearly, or anything else you want to know, you can please ask.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I just have one question that angel investors, they do not find any equity. They are investing 5 to 10 lakhs without any equity sharing, just you told.
Yeah.
So what it means? Yes, sir.
See, in the beginning, you cannot directly approach VCs. Venture capitalists are the people who might be having their own industries. They are the successful entrepreneurs. So they actually look for, some kind of equity stake. Usually it is from the government, 2 or 2.5% to 9% equity stake is defined. So what does it mean? If you earn 100 rupees from your startup, they are going to charge 9 rupees, maximum out of your profit. So that is the equity stake concept. So it does not apply for angel investors. Angel investors are very, very rich people who are not the part of any company. They are not working in any company, might be running their own business. They want to actually look for some innovative idea. they are they want to get, what they will be doing. You see, if you have some innovative idea, they are paying for your idea. They are not looking for any revenue generation. Why? Because after a certain period of time, once you are going to give rights, you are providing your, it is patented, let it this your idea, you are going to patent it. You don't want to disclose it into the open public. So I have got it patented in that case, but some angel investors comes to me and he is interested for his own business. He will come to me, he will be paying 5 lakhs rupees to me for giving rights to him. So in that case, it would be very profitable for me. In that case, if I feel so, I will give my legal rights to the angel investor. Angel investor doesn't matter. He has already paid 5 to 10 lakh rupees. It hardly matters for him or her. So in that case, but he is now having the rights with him, and he can make use of that idea or technology which has been developed by you for his own business. And you could be a part of his team or you could not be. So they are not more interested in the revenue generation because they are already rich people. They want to take your innovative idea from you. They want you to develop some innovative idea, even if you don't have any prototype. The main difference is the VC community looks for the product development stage. They will ask you, are you ready with your prototype? Have you developed your product? If it is having some tangible form, then only they will be investing money with equity stake. and profit will also be taken by them. This is the different case. But angel investors case means you don't have any prototype, you don't have any product, you are just having an idea only. You are going to present your idea, which is imaginary idea only. In that only they are going to invest 5 to 10 lakh rupees very easily if they find your idea innovative and creative. And there is no equity stake, as I have already discussed. I hope, Dr. Sandeep, I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Where to find these angel investors? Means how
Yeah,
to
so
approach
I have
them and
already
then.
discussed. See, there is a list also, just like Indian Angel Network. I am giving you one name. Indian
Okay.
Angel Network is the one online platform from where you can download a list of angel investors who are working in different areas. So, as a
Okay.
pharmacy student, you would have to see who will be interested in your idea of pharmacy. So you have to contact a list of angel investors is there with their contact. The startup founder has to contact those angel investors. Okay, sir, I am working in this agriculture field or in this pharmacy field, and I have a very innovative idea. I want to meet you. Like this, you can directly contact with them. That is crowdfunding actually. So crowdfunding approach where you can access the online portals available and you can directly download. What is the other way of approaching these angel investors is to register your startup under the incubator or Atal incubation centers. Once you are registered with incubation program, incubator will be providing you a list of angel investors, VCs, and you will get seed funding support from the incubator itself. So there are two ways, right? So
Yeah.
crowdfunding approach is there. Other, you can register your company, you can take admission under incubation program.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I request students, those who have questions, they can ask the sir. Ravina?
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
audible.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. First of all, thank you so much for delivering such a wonderful lecture. Sir, I have got a few questions. Say, for example, first one goes like, sir, you talked about the cost, right? So, what if our product is a bit expensive than the market one, which is already existing, but then the selling points, which we can say, are more greater, like they are more better than what is existing. So what cost factor will define with our idea, like
See,
in short?
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, cost matters a lot. First of all, see, once you are going to innovate, I have already discussed about innovation. Innovation means, see, you have to make a lot of iterations, until you get it in the right form. See, if it's you are having some expensive product and already same kind of product is existing in the market. See, they might pay for your product, but in that case, you have to undergo a lot of survey related to the benefits and the features which you are going to add to your product. Let me just tell you one case of the mobile industries. You see, how many of us are going to pay? We are going to have a large comparison between the number of when we are going to purchase the mobile phones. I go for, somebody is going for Vivo, somebody is going for Oppo, Samsung. So many mobile leaders are there, and we are going to have a very big comparison about the price, also about the features, and finally we choose the product which is having less cost and more features, right? But this is the one case, right? Because their features are almost same and similar, right? So there is no more differentiation between these features of those products. But if you see the other case which you have just said, I would give you the example of Apple Corporation, founded by Steve Jobs, right? So the Apple is known for their iPhones, and we are paying 1 lakh and up to 1.5 lakh rupees for these iPhones of Apple's. Then, and we are not going to have any comparison of Apple mobile phone with Samsung, Oppo, or other competitors sitting in the market. So what I mean to say, that whatever the question you have raised, this is very rare, like Apple Corporation. So Apple has certainly incorporated the concept of design thinking process for their mobile manufacturing units, which starts with empathy, define, this ideation, prototyping, testing. So this concept has been very well used by this Apple Corporation. So not by Samsung, not by Oppo, and that's why Nokia and this Kodak camera, these are out of the market these days because they did not innovate. So Nokia was the mobile leader decades back, and this Kodak in camera industry was the leader. They didn't innovate. So uh, Apple. So what I mean to say now, I think I have answered your question. It is very rare situation. So like Apple Corporation, but usually your startup will fail if you are going to offer your product at a higher price and with almost same kinds of features which are already existing uh, in the previous products. So you really have to work very hard and you have to convince your customer, then only I will be attracted towards your herbal product or pharmacy related product. So you would have to work very hard like Apple Corporation, and so that no more competitors will be there. If it is not so, then I would say reduce the cost of your product and add features. More customers will be there in the market, right? And I have already told you this is the mistake, by many startups, and three-fourths of the startups fail every year because sometimes they are not working on the cost of the product. And even if your product is having a large number of features, you have not done anything for your branding and marketing, then who will be knowing about your product? That is another part. So many things are involved. So your marketing and branding should also be very strong enough, and it should have very different kinds of features. In that case, if you are keeping your cost high, then you can certainly attract the customers. But this is very rare. The probability is just 1% of the success in this particular case. Okay, I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir, one more question I had. Sir, for prototype building, we before pitching our idea, we have to build a prototype. That's what you said, right? So, for that also, do angel investors give that funding to us prior to prototype building?
Right, right. I have already answered this question. Angel investors, you don't have to develop any prototype. You can directly approach, you can find a list of those people, but you would have to see, suppose you are working in a pharmacy sector. So there may be a list of 20 people, only one or two will be interested in pharmacy related project or idea. So they just want to see some innovativeness in your idea. You don't have to develop your prototype when approaching angel investors. But if you have developed prototype, you have completed your validation also, in that case you can directly approach to the VCs, and VC list is always available under accelerator programs. So there are several number of accelerators also established by several private and many government accelerators are also there after the incubation. So see, there are three things you should understand: pre-incubation, incubation, and then acceleration. So first you should have pre-incubation, which starts from your college lab only, where the teachers are going to pre-incubate your idea. So that is a part of pre-incubation facility. Then I don't know whether your college is having an incubator or not, but in my college we have MSME based incubator. So when you have some innovative idea, you can go under some incubation program. You can take admission. You can register your company first as a startup for getting admission into the incubators. So then only you will be getting a list of angel investors, and you can directly, you have to be ready with your innovative business plan or your business pitch, and they don't want to look any kind of prototype, right? Lavina, I have
Yes.
answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, any more question from the students? I think no question anymore. Sir has given deep insights about this prototype validation. So we'll move to the next part. Aishwarya,
Yes,
you
sir.
can proceed. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the very knowledgeable session and for your valuable inputs. I would now like to invite Mrs. Rutuja Shinde, ma'am, Assistant Professor SCOP, to present the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You can on
Okay.
your cameras.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to all. I feel honored to propose vote of thanks on the behalf of Sihagar Technical Education Society, Pune, for this session. My heart fills with lots of gratitude and respect for our guest speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Gupta sir, for not only sparing their invaluable time for us to grace this session, but also for enlightening us with their commendable talk on the subject. Thanks for clearing our concepts and enhancing our understanding towards converting innovation into a startup. Thank you so much for your guidance. We are thankful to our Honorable Founder President, Professor M.N. Navle sir, Founder Secretary Dr. Mrs. Sunanda Navle ma'am, Vice President Mrs. Rachana Navle Ashtekar ma'am, Vice President HR Mr. Rohit Navle sir for their motivation. I'm running short of words to express my humble thanks to our principal Dr. Rajesh Patil sir for arranging, planning and making this meeting successful. Your support and motivation lead us on the path of success. I would like to thank our activity coordinator, Mr. Sandeep Gadve sir, and Dr. Sadhna Raut ma'am, and our teachers for their active participation in making this meeting successful. Once again, thanks to one and all who contributed in this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Yes, ma'am. I now request all the participants to please switch on their cameras for a group photo.
Aishwarya, you can also take the screenshot.
Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, I thereby conclude today's session.
Okay, Dr. Bhaskar sir. I will call you after the meeting. We'll discuss the about. I just have some queries, so we'll discuss about that. I have some
Sure,
prototype. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shall I leave?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. All student, you can leave the meeting.